You are not alone. How I realized I struggled with an eating disorder. This video will be part 1 of 4 videos. Hi, if you are watching this, I am finally posting a YouTube channel video. And although that should be super exciting news for me because it's something that I've been thinking about for a long time, and it's something that I've been working towards for a while. I've been mustering up the courage. I am naturally a shy person, so I'm mustering up the courage to even do this. And I realized it hadn't happened because I wasn't passionate enough about something to talk about it until today. So it is very emotional, which is why I'm taking my time to talk about it, because I never, I'm going through the realization myself that I suffer from disordered eating, and I never thought that as a person who has a super healthy and fit lifestyle, or so I thought, who strive to have a platform and a presence of health and wellness, who educates people on this because I'm passionate about it, would be battling eating disorder. I never thought. So here I am today, deciding to make a video and share my experience of what it's like as a Black American Caribbean woman battling eating disorder. And I'm 29 years old. I realized as of last night that this is something that I'm battling. I think I've been in denial for a really long time about it. And I do have grace for myself to say that I am grateful to be here and able to speak about my experience, able to share with someone else who might look like me what it is like. I think if you are a Caribbean woman, you or a first generation immigrant from the West Indies to the United States, culturally you are raised, everyone talks about or comments about what we look like. You're too skinny, you're too fat. I think it's not just in West Indian culture, but it's in the culture of, I think, women. We tend to be caught up in body image and weight, and I think a big part of that has to do with the patriarchy. It has to do with society creating beauty standards that do not represent what we truly look like as people. We come in all shades and sizes, from all walks of life. We look different, we act different, we smell different. We're all beautiful, and as I'm coming to the realization that this is something I battle with, and I just saw 333 Alyssa, and I said that because the person who's probably gonna watch this is gonna know what that's about. It's a very dear friend of mine who also has encouraged me to do YouTube videos, but as I'm coming to the realization of what I'm battling, I know that there's other people who are battling it, and I wanted to share my experience. So what brought me to the realization that I might be suffering from an eating disorder? Well, recently, my partner and I, my boyfriend, he came to visit me, and during that time, he had noticed, so I'll give a quick backstory. My boyfriend and I met at the beginning of this year, right before COVID, and then quickly fell into a relationship. We ended up living together for part of that time. He had his own place in LA, and so did I, but we decided to kind of stay in my apartment and just kind of spend the time here. It was just easier to quarantine together and have company. During that time, I did food journeys. I went raw vegan. He watched my eating patterns. He noticed that I hadn't eaten at certain times, but we never really discussed it. And he gave me the space to explore my own journey with food, right? He allowed me to figure it out. Like, he wasn't judgy on like what I was eating, why I was eating it. I think he just was like, maybe that works for her. That might be what works for her body. Fast forward to him visiting me now. So actually, let's backtrack. And I'm taking my time because I can be very long-winded, and I want to make sure everything I say is with intention, so bear with me. But during that time, after living together during the quarantine, he had to go back, we're long distance, to where he's from, and I am still here. So I also did travel, so we did some visits back and forth, and I had visited him a while back, and I visited him because I was working with someone who required that I traveled. And it was a great opportunity in this fact that I did learn a lot about myself, and I learned what my boundaries with people, but I think I didn't realize it brought up something that I might have been battling, and it was eating patterns and eating habits. While I was traveling, I wasn't eating properly. I was eating one day and fasting another because the person I was with was doing so. And it may work for them, but I think I didn't realize how it might have triggered the disordered eating I had already been dealing with, and I hadn't realized I was dealing with from childhood. So after coming back from that trip, and I was in his hometown when I was traveling, which is why my boyfriend had seen me, he realized my eating patterns were irregular and even more than usual. I think there were times he was like, all right, she's doing this diet or she's doing this journey. So in those moments, he again had grace for me and just was like, oh, maybe this is good for her. Like, you know, he was still getting to know like what I was doing, and also was just like, oh, it is cool, raw vegan is cool. I was eating really healthy foods. I think the thing is, I wasn't as healthy in my routine. I wasn't eating maybe the right amounts. And I think when someone is battling with disordered eating and there's other issues there that they might not be handling and they don't realize, food is just an expression of it. And that was what I was going through. So, and I'm gonna take a moment because I feel like I feel my chest tightening, and that's my anxiety coming up. And that's what I didn't notice, that experience had triggered a lot of anxiety in me. It ended up being, like I said, a great life lesson, but it was a very emotional experience. And I think in that moment, I felt like I didn't have control because the things I had expectations for in terms of that partnership, it hadn't gone that way. And I think it led to me trying to constrict my eating as a way of controlling my environment and protecting myself. Like, I can control what I put in my body. And I guess it had moments where it was healthy and it looked like food journeys, and then other moments it was getting taken too far and I hadn't realized. So with that being said, I did write some notes because as much as I want to share my that pen was loud, sorry. As much as I want to share my personal experience, I do want it to be educational. And I wrote down some thoughts of what it looks like when you are going through this. So it could be an obsession with detoxing. Like, I was like, yes, I just want to detox. I just want to be clean. I just want to be clear. And it was like this need to control myself. because I felt like other aspects of my life weren't going the way I wanted. Then rapid weight loss. It came up more recently, and I will continue that story now because in this last month, I've probably lost like 10 to 15 pounds, and I hadn't realized it was disordered eating. Again, my partner had seen these signs from before and hadn't said anything because he wanted to respect my space and also didn't know what was happening. So during this period, we spent 11 days together, and he noticed I was eating a lot less. During this period, I got my period, and I noticed my period looked like water. It was literally liquid. And that for me was a signal like, okay, this isn't normal, and I don't want to feel like this. My body was aching. I've been dealing with these Indian meal moths in my house, and I guess moths are kind of like they resemble butterflies and how they cocoon and they bloom. But I've been dealing with them in my house, and as I've been dealing with them, my body's also been physically aching, and I've been feeling a lot of anxiety and stress along with this pattern of not eating. So I'm having all these symptoms, and again, a week before my boyfriend came, I thought a lot of these symptoms were based in just the weather changing or me going through a transformational period because I had the moths in my house, and I hadn't realized the transformation was this. I needed to be vulnerable enough. I needed to transform enough to share this experience, but also just like the moths, I've been looking up what to do to handle the situation, but I also do feel like when animals come to you, they are coming to tell you something. And what I realized was what was this connection between me and the moths, and this feeling that I know that I'm not eating well. Well, the connection was, I noticed that when I was researching, I realized that these moths don't, when they are larvae, they eat through everything. They eat organic grain. That's how I ended up with them in my house. I had a bag of grain, organic like rice grain that I had gotten from a store, and that ended up, sometimes, I guess when it is seasonal, it is the time of year, you tend to find them more. And I must have gotten a bag that had the larva in it. And the larva, again, eats through everything. So I had brought in this bag home. I hadn't known it was sitting in my house for a few months, unused. And it's just dry food, so that's normal, right? Sometimes we don't go into certain parts of our pantry, but I didn't know it led to a place for them to nest. And the larva eats through everything. When they're larvae, they eat everything. Then they cocoon. Once they spin the cocoon and they become moths, they don't eat anything. And I thought of that and looked at, like, in my childhood, I was extremely overweight. Okay, maybe not extremely, but again, in my head, and that could have been the disordered mindset, I thought I was extremely overweight. I probably was slightly overweight as a child, like husky. But being picked on because of it, having family members call me out of it, one of them being my father, and I was very estranged from my father my whole life. I think the few times he did see me, the first thing he would say is like, I could see myself like rolling you down the street. When I was like 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. Those are your formative years. When people say things like that, it's hurtful. When it's people that you think are supposed to be your family, are supposed to be there for you, it's hurtful. I don't necessarily have a close relationship with my dad, so I wouldn't say people you love, because I don't really feel like I ever had that connection with him. I do feel like I've had male figures in my life that have been great, that have been father figures and father.
If you enjoyed part 1 of this video, check out part 2, 3, and 4 of my series on eating disorders.